Session. All right, and same format as our last program. We have with us Susannah Holloway from running for Senate District 32, and Pam Lauria running for the same seat. We'll be facing off in a Democratic primary in a few weeks. We're going to start with opening statements. Ms. Lauria, you have the floor first.
Excellent. So I want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum. It's an important duty, and I appreciate that you all do that. Yes, so my name is Pam Lauria, and I'm excited to be running for Senate in District 32. I know District 32 very well. I grew up in East Providence. I'm part of the large Fonts family there, and I went to high school there throughout. My husband and I, when we decided to buy our home and raise our family, moved here to Barrington, which is his hometown, and we've lived here since, raising our two children, Jacob and Maddie. They are both college students. My husband, David, is a high school teacher at Mount Hope High School in Bristol. But my life's work, aside from raising my family, has been healthcare. I'm a nurse practitioner for 25 years in primary care, the last 2.5 years at the front lines of the pandemic. But I've also been very involved in my community. I have been volunteer at all levels of the schools. At my church, I have been the chair of the Barrington Democrats for the last 6 years, and I've worked on affordable housing with the Housing Board of Trustees. I've also been active at the State House. For the last 8 years, I've been an active advocate with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, working for gun violence prevention. I've also been there working on issues of reproductive justice and the environment, and I hope to work on issues for Barrington, Bristol, and East Providence as your senator. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holloway, opening statements.
Hi, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I am very grateful to the League of Women Voters for putting on this candidate forum and debate. I am Susannah Holloway. I live in Barrington. I'm currently an elected official. I'm on the Committee on Appropriations, and I am the vice chair. I was raised in Providence, Rhode Island. My father, Ross Holloway, was a longtime professor at Brown University. I went to North Carolina for law school, where I met and married my husband, raised my daughters in Chapel Hill, and I served on the OWASA Board of Directors, which was the Water and Sewer Authority in Chapel Hill. And I worked for almost 12 years at the North Carolina Attorney General's office, where I was in charge of government oversight of taxpayer dollars. So having an oversight role taught me an awful lot about tracing taxpayer dollars for the public pension plans and also for the Medicaid division. So I have returned home to Rhode Island, where I am serving in the community as a volunteer with Barrington Interfaith Partners. I'm active in my church, St. John's, and I am also active with the Pawtucket Advocates for Racial and Social Justice. I've done a lot of work as an environmental advocate in Rhode Island, and I just recently won the Climate Action Rhode Island endorsement. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to questions. First question to Ms. Lauria. Hopefully you didn't watch the form before, because there'll be some repeating questions. So hopefully this is all new. First question. What do you see as the most pressing upcoming issue for your district?
I have to pick one. So I think there's lots of pressing issues. My top 3 would be healthcare, which is something that I know a lot about. I think that we need a healthcare voice at the State House. I think that we need to learn some lessons from COVID about access and about how a lack of mental health services that there are. I also think education would be another top issue. I'm married to a teacher, and I have seen firsthand what COVID has done to our children and to our educators. And I think that we need to focus on helping them recover from that. And then I think the third one would be the environment. I think that East Bay is uniquely poised to be affected by the effects of climate change. We have to work to improve the future emissions, but we also have to work on helping our communities all throughout the East Bay with resiliency efforts here in the East Bay.
Thank you. And I actually did read that wrong. It was, what do you see as the most pressing issues for your district? So okay. Your response was perfect. My question was flawed. So Ms. Holloway, what do you see as the most pressing upcoming issues for your district?
Thank you so much. So I would put climate first. I think the climate catastrophe that we are facing currently and getting to face more of is absolutely our #1 issue, and that we have a lot of work to do. Rhode Island is starting to do big picture things towards helping us fight climate change, but we need to get into the nitty-gritty, like putting solar on existing buildings and having local renewable sources of energy. Also transportation, we could do much more with our current transportation infrastructure, getting people on buses and electric buses. And we also have the rising sea level to worry about. Education is another huge issue for me. I would like to have an amendment put before the voters to amend our constitution for an adequate education for all Rhode Island children so that they would have that right. I'm also pro-choice. That is absolutely necessary at this time with the Dobbs opinion. Women and all of us in Rhode Island need to stand together and stand up for abortion rights. I am also a member of Moms Demand Action, and I'm working hard to try to pass that assault rifle ban.
Okay, thank you. We move to another question. We begin with Ms. Holloway. Do you believe that charter schools have a positive or negative impact on public education in Rhode Island? And depending on your answer, would you support the expansion of charter schools in this state?
That is a really difficult issue here in Rhode Island because we have some amazing charter schools. And I know teachers at charter schools, and those charter schools are providing wonderful education, many of them. But I feel strongly that charter schools can have a deleterious effect on public education. So I would want to curtail charter schools in Rhode Island, and I would want to put more resources into our public schools that we have. Charter schools can have very non-transparent spending. I worked in North Carolina to trace the spending of charter schools, and sometimes it's difficult.
Ms. Lauria, same question.
So I agree that some of the charter schools that we have now are great for some of our different learners. For instance, the Met School is for our performing arts students, and I think those kinds of resources are important. But I also would not be in favor of furthering any more charter schools. If you actually read the Credo study, it talks about how, one, it removes important dollars that our public schools need. They generally self-select, so they don't have the special needs students. And so that takes away those dollars that are needed in the public school system to teach those children. And it actually also shows that it increases segregation of students. So for all those reasons, and because our public schools need more resources, I would not be in favor of increasing any more charter schools.
Thank you. Next question begins with Ms. Holloway. How can state legislators help local businesses?
State legislators can help local businesses in many, many ways. One of the main things that I see state legislators being able to do is to be very concerned about transparent government so that all of our tax dollars are going into the correct bucket and they're going where they're supposed to go. That helps local businesses because it helps make sure that we are doing all we can with our current tax dollars and not seeking to raise taxes. Currently in Rhode Island, we have a very high sales tax, which, I'm sure that is a regressive form of taxation because it applies to people no matter what their incomes. But state legislators can do a lot to have transparent government, trace tax dollars, and also handle big ticket items and take the onus off of businesses such as healthcare.
Ms. Lauria.
So I think there's a lot of things that we can do for small business. First, I think that we need to cut some of the red tape that small businesses have to go through to open businesses here in Rhode Island. I think we have to make that a smoother and more transparent process for them. I also think that, to bring it back to healthcare for just a moment, one of the primary drivers of cost for employers to be able to have more employees is healthcare and the healthcare dollars. And I think that one of the things we could do from across for healthcare and for small business is to take that burden off of them by working towards a universal healthcare. I'd also like to see more tax incentives. We should be moving to a green economy, and I want to incentivize companies to do that and use some of those dollars coming out of the recent bill that was passed federally to help businesses transition and to utilize those incentives to go ahead and build more business and more jobs here in the green economy.
Thank you. All right, new question. Ms. Lauria begins with you. I think you both touched on this in your opening, to the opening question, but we'll go back and give you a chance to go deeper. We have clear evidence of climate change all around us. Do you believe the General Assembly is doing enough to think long-term about climate change? What would you try to accomplish if elected?
So I think that the General Assembly has made some bold steps with the Act on Climate legislation. I think that we have to keep going and making sure that that legislation has teeth and that we pass the regulations to help meet those bold initiatives. I think that we could go even further by maybe reducing and eliminating our carbon emissions earlier. I also think that we need to think about transportation in general and how that affects our environment. So I would love to see RIPTA become free or at least vastly reduced so that we can encourage more people to use mass transit and then thereby reducing emissions, more bike lanes and bike infrastructure. And we need the infrastructure to help people do that. I also think that we need more efforts towards resiliency. Just here in the East Bay, Warren is fighting this effort right now, and we will have to reclaim some of their property. And I think that that's going to happen more along the East Bay.
Ms. Holloway, same question.
Yes, I don't think that Rhode Island is doing anywhere near enough on fighting climate change right now. We have to have the goal of 100% renewables by 2030. And currently in existing legislation, it's 2033. And we get there through having offsets. Offsets are not okay. That's not going to get us to the resiliency and efficiency that we need to have with local sources of renewable energy, which we have a lot. We can do a lot with solar. We can put solar on all existing buildings. We should start now. We can retrofit our existing buildings with heat pumps and weatherization. We also have to command the offshore wind economy. We have to make sure that we have goals and incentives that we will have Rhode Islanders in those jobs with those wind turbines. And also, I think we could do a lot with preserving our open space and helping with forestry, because forests help a lot with carbon capture, and it's a natural resource that benefits everybody.
Next question begins with you, Ms. Holloway. I think I know what your both answers to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because again, it gives you a chance. Do you support a woman's right to choose her reproductive health care, including the right to have an abortion?
Yes, I do. I am absolutely pro-choice. I worked very hard to try to pass the Equality and Abortion Care Coverage Act this year. I testified both at the House and at the Senate. I was heartbroken when it did not pass. We have to be very strong and united that women are people. Women have rights. This is a liberty interest. Women should be able to control their bodies. They and they alone own their bodies. So nobody should be telling a woman what she should do with her body. I am absolutely committed to pro-choice.
Ms. Lauria.
So I'm also absolutely committed to pro-choice. I am a healthcare provider who provides reproductive healthcare. I do not provide abortion care, but I believe that it is healthcare like any other healthcare, and that all women should have that right to choose how to decide on their pregnancies. I also think that I was there at the State House when the Reproductive Privacy Act was passed, and I plan to be there when the EACA is passed. I think that we have to understand that when we talk about access, we also have to talk about equity. And by having a law that allows women because of their insurance or because they're a state worker or a Medicaid recipient to not have that access, then we are not assuring that access for all women. And that is what the RPA's intent was. And I think that we have to go further and continue that.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Lauria, next question begins with you. Let's see, in the 2022 session, the House of Representatives unanimously supported a shoreline access bill, which would clarify citizens' rights along the shores of Rhode Island. The Senate adjourned without even considering the bill. Are you familiar with the bill and do you have a position on it?
I am familiar with the bill. I do realize what a feat it is to have the entire House of Representatives vote unanimously on any bill. And I know that that came after the commission did hard work on this issue, a bipartisan commission did hard work on this issue. I believe that we should be preserving shoreline access. I think that other states have done a great job with this. Hawaii, for instance, there's no such thing as a private beach. And I think that we should have that in Rhode Island as well. I think that it's reasonable to say that the 6 feet from the high tide is where we should do that. And people need to have access to their shoreline. We are the ocean state. That is one of our greatest resources and it should be able to be shared by all.
Thank you. Ms. Holloway.
Yes, I am familiar with this bill. I think it's a very good bill and I am committed to trying to see that it would be passed into law. Shoreline access for Rhode Islanders, it's one of our rights of living in this state and we have it in our Constitution, but it needs to be absolutely implemented and it needs to be protected on the ground. The CRMC is supposed to be helping protect that right to shoreline access, and yet the CRMC has an awful lot of trouble having resources and staff meet the commitments that are outlined in its statute. I am in favor of reforming the CRMC, and I would like to see that happen. And when that happens, we will have a much stronger advocate for our shoreline access.
Thank you. Next question begins with you, Ms. Holloway. Do you believe there should be any changes to current Rhode Island gun laws?
Yes, I do believe there should be changes to current Rhode Island gun laws. I believe we should ban assault rifles. I think it is heartbreaking and a tragedy that this legislature in this year of 2022, when so many small children were murdered in Texas, they could not even bring themselves in our Rhode Island legislature to ban assault rifles. I am very concerned. It is one of the reasons that I am running because our Senate leadership is not leading the way it should be on this issue. This should be absolutely job one and a no-brainer. Pass the ban on assault rifles.
Ms. Lauria.
So before being a nurse practitioner, I was a trauma burn nurse at Rhode Island Hospital. That's how I got involved in this issue. I've seen firsthand the tragedy of gun violence. I've also lost patients to self-inflicted gunshot wounds. So this is a critical issue. I've been with Moms to Me actually for the last 8 years. I have been there when all of the wonderful, including the last 3 bills that were passed this past session were passed, but we do need to go further. We absolutely need to go after the assault weapons. And we also have to work on safe storage solutions. I'm a wife of a teacher. I've had 2 children that grew up doing gun violence drills. It's a tragedy that we allow ourselves to live like this, and it's a preventable tragedy that we need to go further on.
Thank you. Last question, Ms. Lauria. This is actually our last question. Ms. Lauria begins with you. Why are you the best candidate for Senate District 32?
That's a great question. Thank you. So I think I'm the best candidate for District 32 because I think that I bring a lifelong love of this community and I know this community. I've been part of this community, but I also have been working hard for this community. I am on local issues. I have been involved with our schools. I have been involved with our Housing Board of Trustees. We didn't get a chance to talk about affordable housing, but I think that's another critical issue. And I've also been working hard to get other people elected that I think will emulate those values at the State House. I am ready to go and use my experience on healthcare, advocacy, and volunteerism and bring that to the State House to work on critical issues in concert with others and in a cooperative way that I think would do best for District 32.
Ms. Holloway, same question.
Yes, I believe I would be the best candidate because I have a background as a trained advocate. I am a trained civil litigator for working originally for the state of North Carolina, but I would be more than happy to put my skills to work for the state of Rhode Island. We have a lot of work to do. I feel that I am ready to do it. I have been trained to advocate seriously for issues, trained to write legislation and see that it's implemented, and see that going forward, the laws and regulations we have are followed. So you have to have enforcement of the laws that you create, and you have to create good laws. So I'm ready to get to work right away. I think that we can do an awful lot here in Rhode Island if we put our mind to it. We need better open records, and we need more transparency in government. We need to be able to trace our tax dollars, and I would be ready to do that. I had oversight over public pension plans in North Carolina, as well as the Medicaid department, and I could do it here too.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of our question and answer period. We're going to move to closing statements. We're going to begin with Ms. Lauria. You have a 30-second closing statement plus another 3 minutes. So if you, which you do not have to use, but if you choose to, you have 3.5 minutes to close down your remarks.
Thank you very much. Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum, and to you, Scott, for doing your gracious time to volunteer for this forum. As a healthcare provider, I understand not only the medical implications to healthy individuals and families, but also the social determinants of health. And my focus in the Rhode Island Senate will be on those social determinants of health. We need affordable, equitable, and accessible healthcare. We need common sense gun laws. We need environmental stewardship, and we need affordable housing. We need to support our children educationally and emotionally, and we need to work on workers' rights and making Rhode Island more affordable. I love the East Bay. I would be honored to represent my community in the Rhode Island Senate. I know that I can bring my experience in healthcare advocacy and community service to the critical policy discussions in the Senate while collaborating on real solutions. I'd like to just take a couple of more of my moments of my time to talk about some of the other issues that I think that we should be talking about. Affordable housing is key. I think that we need to do better, and there's a lot that we can do up at the State House. I would love to work on some of the things we can do for inflation, with transportation, with working on our tax policy to help small businesses do better and bring costs down for our residents. I think that we have to talk more about our schools as well. We need to work on having a reliable, equitable funding formula. We need to work on passing the right to education as a constitutional amendment. 24 other states have done that. And we need to have redress if communities do not fund their core instructional amounts. We need a long-term cohesive plan for RIDE so that we can follow some of the examples of our northern neighbor in Massachusetts and work towards effective and long-term success. I also think that we need to talk more about healthcare. We need to talk about not only reproductive healthcare, we need to talk about mental health, both in our schools and for our adults. Part of the problem that we're going to have in the coming decade is that we cannot get primary care providers to come and stay in Rhode Island, and we can't get mental health care providers to accept insurance or stay in Rhode Island because we are not having adequate reimbursement for those services. And we are too close to Massachusetts and Connecticut, where a provider can go and make 30% more just by driving 30 minutes from their home. So we need to work on those issues because we don't have primary care in the coming decades as our population is aging. If we don't have mental health services for our children that have suffered during this pandemic, we're going to be in the world of hurt. So I'm ready to go to the State House and work on these issues and more. But more than that, I'm ready to listen to the constituents of District 32, to do my homework, and to go and be there as a representative for all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holloway, you could have up to 3 minutes if you'd like.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think I would be the best candidate because I am so well versed in working in state government with oversight of taxpayer dollars and working to enforce regulations that makes sure the taxpayer dollars go where they are supposed to go. In Rhode Island, we have huge challenges because a lot of the transparency we need is not there. We need a better, more robust open records law. We also need a lot more oversight of our Medicaid tax dollars, which are driving our state budget. And we need to have a lot more transparency with the Medicaid managed care program. We could look at Connecticut. What Connecticut has done is they have taken away their managed care organizations, which have another layer of bureaucracy in the Medicaid program. So Connecticut has automatic transparency to its Medicaid dollars. You can do more with what you have, and we need to get serious about that in Rhode Island to keep our taxes down. I voted when I was on the Committee on Appropriations this past year to try to keep our taxes down. I think it's important to me. It's important to our seniors who need to stay in their houses and stay in their communities. But we can do it by being very sensible and responsible about providing very good, high quality, top-notch healthcare with the dollars that we have before we ask for more. I think we can do the same thing with education. We need to give children the right to an adequate public education. We need to make sure the buildings that they are in are safe. We definitely need to have those tax dollars that we spend go to providing excellent education resources. I also think that I am the environmental candidate and that I will stand up and be able to fight things like the fight against expanding the fossil fuel industry in the Port of Providence. I've already done that. I've already submitted public comment against the expansion in the Port of Providence. The children and families in South Providence suffer enough, and we do not need to be expanding our fossil fuel economy at this point. I also think it's important to take care of our low wealth communities and ban payday lending, which preys on young individuals and families and traps them in debt. I am just absolutely horrified that Rhode Island has not banned payday lending. North Carolina banned it 20 years ago, and if North Carolina did it, we can certainly do it. That bill comes up every single year, and it never goes anywhere. I also am part of the Pawtucket Advocates for Racial and Social Justice. We're advocating hard for a much more affordable housing and also for things like prison reform. We can do a lot more to ameliorate the conditions of solitary confinement in our prisons in Rhode Island. Our inmates were suffering dreadfully with this past heat, and we can do much better. We can provide them with mental health services. We can also do an awful lot with police reform.
You're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the District 32 forum. Thank you both. I'm gonna stop our recording. And before I do, just tell the audience who's with us, sit tight for another 5 minutes. We're gonna bring in candidates for Barrington Town Council. If you're interested in that, forum, sit tight. We'll be right back.